Hey everybody, welcome back to We Are Podcast Network. This is We Are Bagu Season 1, Episode 4, the Metroid Series, Part 2. If this is your first time checking out the podcast, thank you so much. Please go to your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, or iTunes, and give We Are Podcast a like. And if you get a chance, head over to our social media. All links can be found in the description. We're at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at /We Are Podcast. With that said, on to the podcast.
We Are Bagu.
My first Nintendo console that I ever owned was the Nintendo GameCube. I believe the one that my parents got me way back when was the one that was bundled with Metroid Prime. And it had the bonus Prime 2 Echoes demo disc in it, which unfortunately I don't have that anymore.
Right.
Because at the time I was trying to play through the game, and every time I'd start it, I could only ever get through the tutorial ship. After that, I was so freaked out by the game that I would have nightmares of these creatures and stuff that I couldn't.
Yes.
I couldn't go any further.
You're right.
And then
You were right.
Finally, I got a little bit older, and I was able to go through it. And in the first section that really genuinely scared me of Metroid Prime was where you're in Phendrana Drifts at the Space Pirate Research Station, and the power goes out, and you have to use the thermal visor. Because that's when the Metroids come out.
Oh, yeah. And then they come right
scared
right
the
towards your
shit out of me.
Dude, rightfully so. Scared the fuck out of me because it went back to the memories of the original NES game where they get on top of you and you're freaking out. Only it was realistic because it's in my face, sucking on my fucking face.
They cover the screen.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Sucking on my goddamn head, and I'm like, no! And you jump into a ball and you can see him on top. My heart's racing just thinking about it.
Yeah,
oh
dude.
My God.
And
Amazing.
I remember my mom actually said, either my mom or my dad, they said, okay, look, if you can't stop having nightmares about this game, we're going to get rid of it.
Right. You're like, not my Metroid Prime!
No, it's so cool, but it's so scary.
And, well, dude, you were right. I was probably almost 20 when that game came out. No, that can't be right. It came out in 2002. I was 17 when that game came out.
Dude, I can't believe that game was rated T.
I was getting laid when that game came out. What happened? Where did things go south?
Metroid Other M.
Yeah, Other M fucked me. I haven't gotten laid since.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the We Are Bagu podcast, where we talk Atari to Steam and everything in between. I'm Ethan, and I am here.
You almost said you were Duck. I saw it. You did, didn't you? Don't lie. You almost said you were Duck.
No, I had to think about my name for a second.
Oh, shit. That was awesome. All right. So, anyhow.
Motherfucker. I'm Ethan, and I am here with my co-host.
Duck.
And
you already did the intro.
Yeah.
I'm listening. Listen, we talk so much Metroid. In the in the last episode, we had to make this a two-parter, so we're gonna get started. All right, so Metroid Prime, Ethan, give us a little go.
Metroid Prime was the first entry into the 3D world for the Metroid series, and it was amazing.
It's pretty good.
Oh my god, dude!
Good. You're right.
Retro Studios, some no-name developer studio. Nintendo was like, "Here, do this," and they knocked it out of the park.
Texas-based, by the way. Now,
damn right.
Nintendo 64 never had a Metroid game, okay? And there was talk that possibly they went to a couple developers and said, hey, how do you think this could be done? They gave them some ideas. And eventually they just said, there's no way to do this. I have a theory. There's two games on Nintendo 64 that could have possibly been prototypes for a Metroid 64. The first is called Jet Force Gemini, which was a Rare game.
I want to say Rare was the first pick for a 3D Metroid game.
So, that's what I'm saying. Why wouldn't you go to them? And Jet Force Gemini, if you look at that game, has a lot of hallmarks that could have been turned into a Metroid game. I believe the second game is called Body Harvest, and if you've ever seen it, it was created by the people who eventually created Grand Theft Auto. And it has a lot of hallmarks, too, of what could have been a Nintendo 64 Metroid. So I think that they went to some people and they built a prototype for it, and it just never came to fruition. I've always thought that Jet Force Gemini was definitely it, though. So, what happened was they went to the American company, Retro Studios, that was just formed, and Retro had 5 games on its slate. It wasn't just Metroid Prime that they were creating other games. Because I followed this game like crazy. I was so excited. When they announced it was going to be a first-person shooter, at first I was like everyone else, but immediately I was like, no, that makes sense. Because that would work in that world. And I was one of the first people on those IGM forums back in the day to accept that and be like, no, this could be cool, guys. This could be cool. Everyone else hated it. The first screenshots that came out for the game, I had those as background images on my computer. This is how pumped I was for this fucking game. Like, I was there. And then whenever it got delayed, because they went to Retro and they saw that, well, they weren't putting much attention as they needed to behind that game, and they were focusing too much on these other games, Nintendo basically went, no, you're second party, we're cutting you off from all this other shit. You're only developing Metroid Prime now. And that first release trailer where you see like all the little skitter creatures coming at Samus was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I remember being pumped. It took me 16 hours to download that fucking trailer from IGN.com back in the day. But I watched it over and over and over again. And when the game eventually released, I got it almost day one for my GameCube. Glitches and all, because the first release of Metroid Prime had a ton of glitches where the game would literally just freeze as you were going through tunnels and shit like that. But I was there wholeheartedly, and that fucker spun. I'm telling you, you could hear that fucker spinning within your GameCube, because that first release was pushing that shit to the very edge.
Oh, for sure. It was using the hardware to its limits.
But I'll tell you what. You want to talk about fucking perfection in a game? And they would always say this isn't a first-person shooter. This is a first-person action-adventure game. And that is what it is. And I'd always be like, well, what does that mean? It did platforming in a first-person game. It did it right.
And it did it well.
It did it so good. Everything about this game hits the mark. It created its own genre of gaming while perfecting Metroid in the same fucking breath. It's insane.
I'd say that this game probably has the best intro of all of them, too, because
I agree.
you're like, okay, there's a distress signal coming from this space pirate station? What? On the surface of this planet we've never been to? What? You get that initial scene where you see the planet and it pans over to the space station and Samus' ship comes down and that epic remix of Samus Appears, I think is the name of that song. And then
it's amazing, dude.
She flips up out of the ship, jumps down,
boom.
And then it pans all the way around her.
It gives you the item, and then you're boom,
you're boom, first person.
And then it's no music, no nothing.
Just dead
silence. You're in
space.
It's beautiful. And it immediately, it's the intro, it's the training level. That's all the Space Forget is. That's it. It is teaching you how to play the game and the mechanics of the game, but it does it in such a good way that it is one of the best tutorial stages you'll ever play ever.
I would argue that it is the best tutorial level out there. There are only certain portions where it explains, use this button to use this, or do that. It's not as hand-holdy as, say, Metroid Fusion was.
Right.
It has some really cool enemies. It introduces new mechanics like the scan visor and being able to switch between
that's what I was just going to bring
visors and beam weapons,
the
even though you only have the one.
Scan visor makes that game. The scan visor, the fact that all the lore, all the data that you get, everything that you see in that game, you have to scan, and it gives you vast amounts of detail on everything.
You can go as in-depth as you want in that game. You can go all the way, get 100%, scan every little thing, know every little bit of lore.
And that's how it introduces the story to you, is you read the logs, you read the Space Pirate log, you read all the details and stuff that's happening. And it's so detailed too, like if you see a crashed monitor, you could scan it and it could tell you why it was crashed, or it would tell you what happened to it.
Yeah, it'll tell you the error that the monitor ran into when it crashed.
It's absolutely insane, the amount of detail put into it, and you could skip most of that if you wanted. Like, you only have to scan certain things.
It's only there if you want to.
And so, how far do you want to go down this rabbit hole? You were 100% right. The other thing I really like is there's like a little prison cell in the Space Frigate, that has like, it's jumping at you, kind of like, there's a jumper in it from the earlier games and you never see it. And it always bothered me. I'm like, why can't I see this fucking thing? Like, it's so cool.
I was so sure that door was going to open up at some point. Yeah. You could hear it back there. It's throwing itself, trying to get out of that door.
And it's building the atmosphere. And the way it jumps is kind of like the pattern that it jumps in like the original Metroid and Super Metroid. Like, it's so cool. So you go through this, and finally the final boss is the Parasite Queen, I believe is the name
of the tutorial level out of the
Yes.
game. So you go inside, you're in the core of the ship, and you're like, what the fuck? Everyone's dead. This whole space station's been decompressed.
And that's the other thing, is you see the dead space pirates.
Some of them are even half dead.
In the
They're
previous
like dying.
game, you saw them, and they look like mantis-like creatures. This game, you get to see them everywhere. They're the main villain.
They're in your face.
They are in your face all the time, and you get to kill them. And they got fire eyes, which is really cool. I always loved that.
Dude, they looked so good.
They look so great. So you get to, why are all these creatures dead? Once again, why are the space pirates defeated?
You enter the core, and this giant Parasite Queen, like you were saying, comes down and just starts spitting acid and shit at you. And that's your first big boss fight. It's really simple.
Epic.
It's not hard. But the music, the atmosphere, it requires you to use all the mechanics you'd learned going through this whole level, and then you kill it, and the ship starts to blow up.
Right.
The timer, that infamous timer from the previous Metroid games comes back, and it's, oh shit, it's crunch time, we gotta go.
And it introduces something that has not been used before in one of these games. It totally depletes everything that you have. All the weaponry, all the armor, everything.
And they did it in a very dramatic way, too.
Right.
So you get a taste. You get a taste of all of Samus's
the
coolest
power,
upgrades.
The ultimate power!
You have the Varia suit, the Morph Ball, the bombs, you've got the Grapple Beam, missile, even the Charge Beam. Simple stuff like that. This is your standard loadout for Samus. Mm-hmm. You go through, you see Ridley, he flies away, so you're like, oh fuck, Ridley's back. You go further, something explodes, it throws Samus back, and she loses everything.
All
she's
the
stuck with just
malfunctioning.
Yeah, she's stuck with just the base power suit.
And
you don't even have the fucking charge beam.
And you escape just in the nick of time to land on Talon 4 in a lush green, on, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, the little alcove that's just...
Yeah, the alcove. And you're there, you gotta start fresh.
It doesn't tell you anything.
The music is beautiful, the scenery is gorgeous. Like I said, it's just, you feel like you're on an alien planet. And you truly do feel. And the nice thing about Metroid Prime is, it's not all caverns and corridors. They are there. That should be a name of D&D game.
Caverns and corridors.
It's pretty good. That would be the Metroid version of it. But you can see the sky, and you can see the lush landscape, and it really does create this atmosphere that's a lot different than the original games, but it pays homage in a way that you feel like you are playing the next evolution, and you are. I mean, this game is everything it needed to be and more.
And the map system in this game is
killer,
pretty damn good.
Because it's 3D.
Yeah, you can move the map around. You can zoom in, zoom out. You can, even all the doors are labeled for which particular beam you need. And you go through like any other Metroid game. You gotta explore. You gotta find your upgrades.
Backtrack. Like a son of a bitch.
There's a lot
I
of
hate
backtracking.
Magmore Caverns. I hate it. I fucking hate you, Magmore Caverns. I'm always in the Magmore Caverns. That game, we could suck the dick of Metroid Prime all day. Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about the bad points.
Are there any? You have
Yes.
bad points? All right, tell me your bad points, because I have zero. Zippo.
It's a great
Other
game.
than Magmore motherfucking Caverns.
Well,
Okay.
that's pretty much my main gripe is Magmore Caverns is a slog to get through.
It is.
And
I get tired of
unfortunately,
seeing those lava dragons pop
Magmore
up.
Caverns is how most of the game is interconnected.
Right.
Between the Chozo Ruins, the Overworld, Phendrana Drifts, they're all connected by Magmore Caverns,
Right.
except for the last area of the game, Faison Mines,
Mm-hmm.
which Faison Mines is probably the coolest area throughout the whole game. That's where you see what the space pirates are doing. They have this huge mining operation. They're going after this horrible ore or substance Faison.
The
And
Faison, yes.
the little pockets you find throughout the world, you touch it, it burns the shit out of you. It fucking
it'll
kills you.
fuck you up.
So you know that shit's dangerous.
It'll fuck you up.
You know it's dangerous, and you know it's powerful. And they're over here using it and infusing themselves with it.
Right.
And that area even has the biggest and baddest boss, the Omega Pirate. Do you remember that one?
I do remember the Mega Pirate.
So
He was a son of a
you're
bitch.
battling your way through the Faison Mines. You're avoiding all this corruption. You're going through and finding various upgrades, fighting these upgraded pirates and whatnot. And as you're going along, you're seeing these larger, hulkier space pirates that have been twisted by Faison, when suddenly you come to this room with a massive...
It's like a cryogenic freeze thing.
Yeah, a giant like cryo chamber with a Hulk, totally skyscraper-sized
Right.
space pirate.
And he's ready to smash. He's
And
ready to Hulk smash like a motherfucker.
At this point, you've got all your upgrades, man. You've got the gravity suit, all 4 beams. Hopefully you went and found some of those super missile combos that are totally optional. And you go in and man, it's a battle of wits.
It is.
Because he'll keep changing his element on you. He'll teleport and heal himself.
And that's the other thing, too, we forgot to mention. You have 4 different weapons. Beams, thank you. You have the original, which turns into the charge.
Power beam, you have the wave beam, ice beam, and then lastly you get the plasma beam.
Right, which is the Faison infused one.
No.
Oh, that's
Plasma
not?
beam is the fire one.
Okay. Oh, you're right. I apologize.
So you have a power beam, wave is electricity, ice beam is the ice beam, and plasma is the fire.
And you don't get the final Faison.
You get that after you beat the Omega Pirate, but you can only use it in the last fight.
Right. So he's changing what you can go after him with. It's just an epic boss battle. But
really well done.
But I would say, for me,
It's hard as shit.
It's not. All right, you said that that's probably your favorite part of the game. My favorite is it Pandora's Drift? Pandora? What did you say it was? The Iceland.
Findrana Drifts?
I don't even care what it is. The music's in my head right now. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Oh my god, dude. It's so in my head. I love that. I think it's beautiful. And that's the other thing about this game is it is beautiful.
That area has some really good boss fights too. Right. Like Hulk sort of
the giant Sheegoth thing.
Yeah, Sheegoth. That's what it was.
And then the giant ice creature that you have to.
The other one's like the rock monster or something.
Dude, it's badass.
That's where you get the spider ball too.
Listen, we're going to spend so much time in this game. We're going to do our own thing. I'm going to talk about something I love about this game the most. The fact that sometimes, when you're not expecting it, in the heat of the moment, the heat of the fight, your fire will kind of rebound back, and it will make Samus's eyes appear in the visor.
The glare.
Yes.
You can see the glare.
And you can see her, and sometimes you hear her go, like, breathe in the mask. And so that really helps put you into it. Secondly, sometimes it freaked me out like crazy, because I'm playing a game, and all of a sudden I see somebody staring back at me through my screen, and I'm like, oh, what the fuck?
What was that?
It was creepy. So, the other thing I want to say is the final battle, the Metroid Prime.
There's two. So, you finally fight Meta Ridley after you collect all of the Chozo artifacts, which that's my only other complaint with this game, is the artifacts.
You don't like that? I love that.
It was fun, but at that point, typically when I reach that point in the game, I've already done so much backtracking specifically for the gravity suit and the X-ray visor.
As long as I don't see the space pirates with, like, the rocket backpacks, I'm fine. Because the second I see them fuckers, I'm like, oh, god damn it, these guys again.
That's really the two main points in the game where it's a huge backtrack. The gravity suit, and I think it's the X-ray visor.
Dude, Metroid freaks me out, too. Oh my god, that's an epic boss battle.
It's so good.
Let's move on real quick. Metroid Prime, you get the scorpion, spider-looking version of him.
And again, it uses the elements against you. That's its outer shell.
It's a great, and then you get to the actual Metroid Prime fight, which you have to stand in the Faison to fight the Metroid Prime.
Yeah, it turns invisible. You gotta use X-ray visor and thermal and whatnot and flip back and forth to see it.
That's a hard boss battle, dude.
But man, that's where you get to see the hyper beam and actually just obliterate this motherfucker.
I played the original GameCube version. You played the Wii version.
I've played both.
You have played both.
I've played both.
Which one do you feel was better version?
The Wii version. 100%.
100%.
Like, the controls it was made for the Wii.
This is actually one of the first conversations me and you ever had were about Metroid Prime 2 years ago, maybe a little bit less. And I was like, Ethan, I can't stop playing it. Like, I started playing the Wii version. I'm like, it's so immersive. Like, I literally can't believe how much different it plays, how well it tracks that Wii motion, and just the feeling of, I actually have the arm cannon in my hand, and I'm playing this.
And on top of that, you have the Metroid Prime 3 Morph Ball control, where if you're in Morph Ball, you can actually flick the remote and you'll jump up.
I think it's one of the rare times where the Wii controls actually work to the benefit of the game. Yeah. I don't think in Zelda it worked, like you had to slash and shit. No. Fuck that. Who gives a fuck? It's immersive. It's as close as the VR as you can get without a headset.
Yeah, it was really well done.
Let's just jump to it. We'll do a whole episode on Metroid Prime sometime.
We should. What's final rating for Metroid Prime 1?
S++++++. S. Fucking through the roof. I don't know which one I like better. This or Super Metroid. I like them both for different reasons.
Okay.
So, moving on real quick.
Zero Mission?
We're going to hit Zero Mission. It was released February 9th, 2004, 2 years after. It was the closest we've ever had in the game. Game Boy Advance. It is a retelling of the original Metroid game.
It's the superior version of the original game.
I like
hands
both.
down.
I like both. I don't know.
I give it an A.
I mean,
straight up.
I mean, the things that they add, and they do add quite a bit to it.
Yes.
They add a lot of atmosphere. Plus, they add
epilogue.
The Zero mission. Exactly. They add the story of the Zero suit and her getting to the various suit. And it's a little bit cryptic if you don't know the history, but what they do in this game is they pepper in more Chozo shit, which is really cool. And instead of just having the statue, the bird statue with the egg or whatever it is sitting on top, which I always thought was awesome, they actually show, like, these are ancient creatures, and they show that there's backstory. Metroid Zero Mission, how do you feel?
I think it's the ideal entry into Metroid, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it's clearly the story they wanted to tell with the first game, cranked to 11.
When I had my hip surgery because I have a fake hip. I was bedbound for almost 2 months, and I got this game during that time, and that's what I played while I was in pain and on tons of opioids and all the good stuff. So I really like this game. That's all I'm going to say, is I really enjoyed it. And I had to play it on the original Game Boy Advance, so there was no lights. I had to hold up like a light or something like that.
What's your final rating for Zero
I give it
Mission?
an A. I think that there's good, but the epilogue where you said it's great, I think it's so-so. I think it's a little bit too much.
The final boss fight at the end of it is really lacking.
Yeah, it's really lame where you're fighting like the hieroglyphic creature, mirror creature, or whatever the fuck it was.
I don't even fucking know.
But it is cool to have that Metal Gear kind of stealth thing where you have to go in. A little bit of a callback to Metroid 4 where you have to do a little more stealth stuff. And it really did implement the Zero Suit into the lore of the game. And it made it interesting.
Worthwhile remake.
And you could connect the Game Boy Advance game to the GameCube game. And in the GameCube game, in Metroid Prime, you would get the Zero Suit. You would get...
That only worked with Fusion.
You know what? I'm thinking of
Fusion. Fusion.
I am thinking of Fusion.
Because
it would give you the Fusion suit in Metroid Prime. And then you would unlock the original Metroid on Metroid Fusion if you linked it. So you could actually play the original Metroid on your handheld before you bought the actual one, which you had. So.
And what's cool is on Trilogy, the actual re-release for Wii of Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3, thank God they re-released 3, you can unlock the Fusion suit just by playing the game.
Oh, that's cool.
I believe you have to play through the entirety of Metroid Prime 1 at least once, and then it unlocks. But as you complete certain tasks in each of the Metroid games, you get these different colored emblems to unlock concept art, etc., etc., etc.
Right.
One of the things you can get is the ability to turn on the Fusion suit. So you can literally just go into the bonus menu, Fusion suit's on, and you can play through Metroid Prime 1 with Wii controls in the Fusion suit.
But I never had interest in the Fusion suit in that game. I just wanted the original suit.
It looks really good.
It looks pretty good, but I don't want to play the game that way. I want to play with the original suit. Plus, I like the half pipes. Oh man, there's so much about Metroid Prime I love. There's so much they do right in that game. Well, it needs a whole episode.
Let's talk about the sequel then.
Let's
Metroid
talk
Prime
about
2
Echoes. Oh, wow. What a game. Talk about fucking fun to play. It's hard. It's too hard.
No.
All right, no. Tell me why.
It's very hard, and it's the level up Metroid Prime needed.
I don't know, man.
I didn't like the ammo aspect of the beams.
I didn't like the ing.
The ing were terrifying, but they're the coolest part of that game, man.
They scare the shit out of me.
They were part of what inspired me to come up with the creatures. You can actually see the inspiration from them in Heroes Gyros. Rufus and Scratch are inspired by all sorts of these creatures of darkness from video games, the Heartless, but also the Ing. That's where they can turn into that pool of shadow. And dude, they're just so cool.
No.
And the first introduction you get to the Ing as well. No?
They're so scary, dude. They scare me. Like, this is how scary they were. Your parents walked into my room and told me that if I didn't stop being afraid of them, they were going to take the game away from me. That's how scary these things are. Like, it is... To me, the atmosphere of that game is so good, and the light dark thing that Zelda had always done so well, they brought to Metroid, and it freaks me out. And what it was the pockets that you have to open of the light so you don't die in the dark world, and the Ing jumping down from nowhere and skittering towards you, and oh man, I'm having a little mini one right now. I'm not even gonna lie. Not an orgasm. I'm having a heart attack right now because it's
little
good.
Panic attack.
Super Metroid and Metroid Prime give me little O's. But this one gives me little H's. So.
I think what this one did probably better than Prime was it introduced a very intimidating antagonist.
Yes.
Which they hinted at the end of the first Prime game.
Right.
Dark Samus. And damn, does Dark Samus look cool. And she fucks with you throughout that whole game.
Yeah, you thought the Terminator from Metroid Fusion was bad. Dark Samus coming to get you.
Dude, Dark Samus is on another level.
Dark Samus is a bitch.
She fucks everything up. She kills space pirates. She'll shoot you, light creatures. She doesn't give a fuck.
And that is something I like about this game. They introduce also the Federation in a lot of ways. They introduce the characters that kind of look like Master Chief running around, and it shows them dead as fuck. And I can't help to think that wasn't a middle finger to Microsoft in some way by introducing those characters. Because they look a lot like Halo guys.
They do look a lot like ODSTs.
That's what I'm saying, dude. So, and for me, I'm a Metroid guy. I'm not a Halo guy. I've never been one. So I'm here all the way. But I will say in this game, I've never beat it. It's too hard and too scary for me. I'll say it right now. I'm a pussy. I don't care. I can't beat it. I want to play it.
Technically, I'm still in the middle of my playthrough of it. In my playthrough, I got as far as getting the light suit, so I got the first set of all the keys, and then the artifact hunt for the second game. I have to go find the final set of dark keys throughout the world. I haven't finished collecting them all. I have to use a guide because
it's impossible.
They're fucking in the stupidest of places, and you should be able to grab them on your first time through, like Metroid Prime 1, but you can't.
It's hard. Let's talk real quick about that bonus disc, though. That's interesting to play that and then to play the actual game and see the areas that were completely different places.
That were completely cut.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was a lot of that too. But it was cool that they did that, and because they re-released Metroid Prime with the bonus disc. That's how I got it. It was the greatest players or player's choice or whatever.
Yeah, it had a couple other demos and stuff on
and
there.
also on top of that, that player's choice was the second variation because they released it here, then they released it in Japan, and really got rid of a lot of the bugs because that first one was really buggy, like I said. Mm-hmm. And then they released the player's choice, which I had 2 versions of Metroid Prime then, and then it came with that bonus disc. That was really cool. Also, this game introduced multiplayer, and I think this is the only one to have the multiplayer in it. And because
excluding Federation Force, which
is all multiplayer, but
no
this game had multiplayer, and for those on the GameCube looking for something kind of like GoldenEye meets Halo, because Halo was known for the multiplayer.
Dude, I thought it was fun.
This attempted it. It was fine for what it was. It wasn't fun. It wasn't Halo.
No, it's not Halo, I'm glad they included this in the trilogy collection. I mean, it wasn't well done by any means, but it was entertaining. You had the beam weapons, you had the light, dark, Twilight cannon, whatever, everything, and it was awesome.
What's your rating?
I'll give it a B. Give it a B.
I will give it a B also.
Like, I think it's a great game. It's a good sequel. But, man, a lot of people say it's really hard. It is hard. It's very hard. And I love that about it. But it did some things worse that the first game did really well. It did a lot of things better that the first game didn't really do better.
And it is piss your pants scary. Fuck that game.
It's so good.
No, thank you. Hey everyone, it's just Doc jumping in here real quick to say thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. If you're enjoying it, please head over to your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, and give We Are Podcast a like. And if you get a chance, head over to our social media. All links can be found in the description. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at /We Are Podcast. And if you're enjoying the podcast today, please share with your friends. It's the only way we can grow this network. With that said, back to the podcast. All right, so next we got Metroid Prime Pinball, October 24th, 2005, for the Nintendo DS. I like this game. Have you played it?
I have not played it. I'm sure it's great.
I play anything pinball, dude. I'm all about pinball. I love video pinball. Even normal pinball, I'm a fan of. Video pinball, I'm all there.
It's the Metroid equivalent of Sonic Spinball.
It is, and it's really fun, and it's got a lot of little things. The original version, though,
there's more than one version.
No, I would give you a little shout out to the Virtual Boy pinball game. There is a small Metroid mini game within the space. Well, they're all space related, but the actual space stage that is a Metroid mini game. So you actually get to fly the little Samus Aran ship and shoot little creatures coming down and stuff like that. And when I was a kid, I thought that was badass.
That's really cool.
I like this game. I will give it a B rating because it's very not rememberable, but it's fun to play in the moment.
Very forgettable.
Yeah, there was a big push for like pinball games during the Nintendo DS time, so
they were looking for anything to put on the DS.
Yeah, DS was just like the Wii, it just printed money. So you could throw whatever you wanted on there.
I mean, fucking Nintendogs.
Speaking of which, though, Metroid Prime Hunters was released on March 20th, 2006. Okay?
I did not play that one either.
That game is interesting because it was a tech demo that actually got turned into a game. Now, if you bought a Nintendo DS, you actually got Metroid Prime Hunter demo with the DS, and that was kind of cool. It plays like Metroid Prime in some ways. The final game plays a lot different because you have to use the stylus, and that's what they really wanted to implement on this, because in a lot of ways, the Wiimote and the stylus are just like a cursor. That's it.
Yeah, that's all it is.
The game itself makes the first cardinal sin of any Metroid game to date. It does not give you all your power-ups and a progression where you level up throughout the game, much like Zelda, much like the original Metroids. It gives you certain ones at a time, and it takes them away.
What do you mean?
That means
like
that
a Super Mario Brothers type power-up?
Every mission, you are presented with all your power-ups up front, and the next mission, you might not have all those power-ups.
So you got like different loadouts depending on the mission you do.
Exactly. And so for me...
Nope.
That's not Metroid. It doesn't feel like Metroid, and I don't like it.
I've never played that game, so I'm just curious, because the next game on our list is Metroid Prime 3, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious, did they introduce the hunters from the next game in Hunters.
Metroid Prime Hunters
Rundus,
is always about
Gendreda,
it's all
and,
the bounty hunters, and that's what it is. This game wasn't so much for the single player; it was for the multiplayer. Because this game was supposed to be the arena matches that you were supposed to have with your friends. Because Nintendo DS was really good at one thing. Multiplayer. Online play. You could connect at any time as long as you were connected to Wi-Fi and play with somebody somewhere. Now, whether or not that person was real, I don't know because there wasn't really a chat function there. You were still supposed to be playing with another
Local multiplayer
place.
was really cool too. The IR function on the DS was actually really solid.
And the DS was a solid machine. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it whenever I had it. Like when I first got it, I was pumped. Got Super Mario 64 DS with the 4-player
Classic.
Just having a good time. But yes, it does introduce the lore of the hunters.
So going into Metroid Prime 3
let
then.
me get my rating.
Fuck you. No,
A
okay,
C
go ahead.
rating. It's not great. Okay.
C? It's not great and you give it a C? That's a pass.
It's a pass. I'll give it a pass.
Really?
Yeah, man. You didn't play it, so you can give it a total pass. Moving on to Metroid Prime Corruption. All right, December 8th, 2007. I have never played Corruption.
You are missing out.
Oh, baby. Is it better than 2?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about it.
So, I did not like this game when it first came out.
Ooh.
I did not like it in its original Wii release version. I don't know if this is something I've hallucinated or I don't know what. There's one really big change from the trilogy release and the original release of Prime 3 Corruption.
Okay.
Backing up, the whole big gimmick of this game is Dark Samus is back. There's multiple planets you can go to. They're all infected with Faison. And straight up from the beginning, you, Gendreda, Rundus, and Gore, the 3 hunters from, Metroid Prime hunters, they actually have a story in this game. There's dialogue, they're there, they explain everything, and the first 2 hours of the game, it's very linear. There's this big meteor coming down towards this planet, and you and the other hunters have to go through and try to power up the planet's defense systems in time. Ridley shows up, there's this awesome boss fight where you diving down through this big chamber, just falling, fighting Ridley.
Oh, yeah.
It's fucking awesome.
That's cool.
And during all this, you're watching these other hunters go around trying to help the situation. You kind of get to know them a little bit, not long enough in my opinion, but that's what the DS game was for, I guess. Finally, at the end, you all go up to the control tower to activate the defense systems, and Dark Samus is there again after being destroyed in the previous game.
Being a boss.
And she shoots all of them. Samus, I guess somehow fends off Dark Samus long enough that she's able to activate the control panel, and she passes out. She's out cold. Weeks later, she wakes up and her whole suit is changed. She's told that her body is physically producing Faison. Literally, her body is pumping out Faison as she goes. And so now you won't get burned by Faison. You stand in it, it heals you.
Oh,
it
sweet.
replenishes your energy. You're corrupted with this Faison. And one of the cool gimmicks of this game is you actually get to go in your ship, press all the buttons, do all the things, check your corruption level, and fly to other planets. You get upgrades for your ship. You can have it call in a fucking drone strike. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's not like what you're probably picturing. You can only do it in certain points and locations, but still, you can call in the ship. You can have it land here, land here. It's fucking awesome.
And how many different planets do you go to?
I believe it's 4.
Are they pretty big or are they like standard?
They're pretty big.
How does that work with the backtracking? Is there traditional backtracking?
Yes.
Okay.
With that, although it stays focused mainly one planet at a time, there's a couple instances where you have to go from X planet back to another planet to get this upgrade because you needed another thing from here. And for the most part, it's really well done. But Samus wakes up, she's corrupted. You have this automatic hyper beam. And that's the big change between the two different versions of the game. You get to a certain point in the story, and you have to use hyper beam. Well, Samus loses control. Your health bar starts going back up, but it's red. And so you have unlimited energy. You're able to keep shooting. You can hit the button to try to get out of hyper mode.
Like a morphine drip. All right.
And it won't let you. It says you have to expend all the energy. Now, quote me here if I'm wrong, someone in the comments or whatever. But if I remember right, the trilogy version, you could shoot and empty the tank, and that would bring you out of corruption. In the actual release of the game, you would shoot to empty the tank, and then you had to do some sort of Wii motion thing or whatever to try to break out of it. And that was horrible.
Yeah, because it wasn't responding the way it should.
Yeah, and then you'd end up being stuck in it again, and then it would fill all the way back up, and then you'd die and turn into the second Dark Samus.
Oh, jeez. Well, I mean, There were changes made, I know that, in the trilogy release, which I know a lot of people prefer over any other release.
Mm-hmm.
But I know in the second game they nerfed the FMVs for like a lot of the stuff. But I think most of the corruption was kept in there. I think it was only Metroid 2 that was affected in a lot of ways.
2 was tweaked a lot.
What would you say sets this game apart from the other games?
You get to go to the Space Pirate homeworld.
Oh yeah? Why hasn't Duck played this? That sounds awesome.
Spoiler, you get to go to the Space Pirate homeworld.
I know, you didn't. You were fine. You didn't have to put spoiler before. I want to go. I
So,
want to go.
Yeah, you go through the 3 main planets, and you have hunted down 2 of the 3 other hunters because they were being mind-controlled by Dark Samus.
Right.
Their corruption got so out of control that she was able to take control of them, and that's how you get some of your upgrades.
The only thing that I knew that they changed was there was like a motion to rip doors open or something like that.
That's still there.
Oh, okay. Is that cool?
It's gimmicky.
Yeah, it's gimmicky.
It's kind of cool the first time you do it. You go like, cool.
The graphics for the third game look like way better than the first 2 to me.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It looks gorgeous, and it looks like there's just so much that's happening that's different. And
The
it really
scenery
expands it.
The scenery and tone of the third game is very different from the first 2 because it's not as Alien of Worlds.
Right, it's more like an industrial kind of thing, right? Where
Yeah, but it fits so well because you still have that intrigue and that desire to explore.
Is it atmospheric in the same way where it's creepy, or is it more action?
It leans a little more action until the end.
And then it gets way atmospheric?
Every planet, you remember that big meteor I mentioned? Mm-hmm. That was called a Leviathan Seed.
Ooh.
Talon 4, they did a callback here, and same with Aether from the second game. They both had these Leviathan seeds inside them.
I'm starting to see some connections here with
something
else.
This third game is what ties all this stuff together.
Right.
So the Leviathan seeds are what brought this Faison and spreaded it to these planets. And the Space Pirate homeworld, the 2 other planets or whatever they are, they all had these seeds, and inside them is a boss. You go through, you get through inside the seed, you fight the monster, you absorb more corruption. The suit transforms and looks cooler and cooler and cooler, even though Samus is like kind of dying. And finally, you're like, well, shit, we gotta stop this Faison, man, wherever it's coming from. You go to the fucking planet Phase, where Faison came from. Dude, you go to the source of Faison itself.
I just want to play the game at this point, Ethan. You've sold
It's
me.
amazing.
You beyond sold me. I'm sitting there going like, I'm imagining what I think this all looks like because I haven't played the game, and I'm like, I'm sold, man. You literally, if they would have got you to pimp this whenever it came out, I would have been like, I can't not play this.
But yeah, dude, this final planet, I'm not going to spoil the final fight because it's really cool, the final fights, whatever. But the whole time on this planet, since you're surrounded by Faison, you're constantly having to fight your corruption meter. So you're having to manage that health bar getting fuller and fuller and fuller, because if it gets all the way, you're fucked. You're dead. You're fully corrupted. So
is that game over at that point?
It's game over.
Game over. Because you come in
because you have
I gotcha.
too much corruption. You have to keep venting it out from the system by shooting.
Dude, I don't want you to talk about it anymore. I want to play it.
Go play it.
What is your rating for this game? If you give it anything less than an S, I'm going to be like, what? The passion in which you describe
1 and 3 are my favorite games in the entire series.
Okay.
So this is a hard S tier.
Okay.
100%.
And I will give it a E rating. All right. I never played it.
You're a dick.
I know. I'm sorry. Okay. So, next game. Oh, I didn't realize that was the next one. Metroid Rm is the next in the series.
This game is trash.
That was released August 31st, 2010. This is the fruition of what everyone realistically wanted when they made Metroid Prime. It is a traditional third-person game where you get to actually see Samus fighting stuff.
It's a side-scroller. It's a platformer.
It was done by Team Ninja, known for Ninja Gaiden, of course, or Gaiden, or however it's said. It is basically just a on-rails platformer with some area. It's kind of what you thought it would be. You would think that a Metroid game would be. Before they went first person, this is the version of it. I like everything about this game. The only thing I don't like is it restricts your power-ups. If you would have done this in a traditional back and forth Super Metroid, and that's what this should have been, this game would have rocked and everyone would have loved it forever.
In what way do you mean it restricts your power-ups?
It restricts you because before you go into certain sections of the game, they only allow you to have certain power-ups. It limits your missiles, it limits what you can use, because you start the game out with all your power-ups. You're not searching out anything. You have everything, like you said, baseline Samus, and it lets you know what you can use in these areas. It is the dumbest gameplay mechanic I've ever experienced, and that's what makes this game stupid to me. And it pisses me off. Do not limit my powers. Let me get them as I progress. Let me find them, and I become better at the game, and then I can beat the game. And also, don't limit what sections of the world I can view at a time. I want to have open world exploring. I want to go back and forth.
It's the whole point of a Metroid game.
They wanted to implement more combat in this game and make it that way, and it doesn't work.
The game looks great.
It looks amazing.
I'll give it that.
And the story, I'm not even against. There's a lot of full motion
Story's
video in
alright.
this. And it's wax poetic. It very much is like her telling her version of the story of Super Metroid and how that affected her.
And then the tie-in to Fusion with Adam, right?
I also don't like the fact that she plays second fiddle to a man, and I know that sounds weird, but he has control over her.
He totally does.
And that bothers
that's
me.
not her character.
That's not her character, and that bothers me because I want to be like burn the broad motherfucking feminist when it comes to Samus Aran. I'm all about that bitch being queen bitch. And that's how I feel it should be.
That's how her character
Right.
is.
And that
she is
bothers
in
me.
control. She
And-
knows she's the best one here.
And that bothers me that she has an answer to a man. And that really, really bothered me when I played it. Also, I always viewed her as the bounty hunter.
She's not tied down by anything.
Not part of this fucking group of people. And I get it. You're trying to create a backstory and this and that. But like when they're talking in the first FMV where she's like, everyone would give a thumbs up and I give a thumbs down to show that I'm a rebel. I'm like, all right, I get it. You're punk rock bitch. But like, you don't need to be that because in my heart, you are already that. You don't need to be thumbs downing anyone because you're better than all these men and all these other people. Like, I just want you to be the space bounty hunter that you were meant to be.
And this was the first game they also gave her a voice actress too,
It
right?
was good though. I liked her voice actress.
It was solid.
I think that opening scene where you see the Super Metroid replayed in a full motion video, very cinematic, very gorgeous, and you see the death of the Metroid baby, that hurt me. And I was like, oh, that looks so cool. Oh no. But then once I got into the gameplay, I'm just like, yay, it's a Metroid. And I've never beat it because I couldn't. I had to stop.
I've heard there's some good secret bosses in that game, but for the most part,
I would love to give it another go and just see what I missed because I feel like I missed something. But same way as Hunters, it's not traditional Metroid. And
painful to go back to because you know it's not Metroid.
It's not. It's a different version of it. And I actually like the gameplay mechanics of it. I like the way the game plays.
I tried it once when I was younger. I didn't care for it at all. I thought it was garbage. I was expecting Metroid Prime.
I really want to go back to it. All right, with that said,
we should give it another shot.
I think we should give that another shot. What's your rating from your one-time experience?
100%. That is a D for dumb as fuck.
I'm stuck between. I'll give it a C+. I really will. I'm stuck, man. I like a lot of it, and I like the idea of the story.
It's the second worst game in the franchise,
I want her to be a badass bitch. She's a badass bitch.
She is not a badass bitch in that game.
I know. You're right. Okay. Moving on. Metroid Prime Federation Force released August 19th, 2016.
I don't want to talk about this game. This is an E rank.
Oh,
Done. Metroid Prime 4. Next.
It's a multiplayer Metroid. It's once again Nintendo.
No. Don't say Metroid's name in vain.
All right. It's Federation Force. It's a multiplayer Halo clone is what it is for the Nintendo DS.
Don't take Halo's name in vain either.
It's
because this game is garbage.
If you're looking for adventure with multiple people to play, you could play this game. I'm afraid to even say it again because the look in your eyes. You went Javi on me. You went shark-eyed, man. I am not chumming the water anymore. Because when Hobbs gets mad, I see that. When you get mad, I evidently see that too, man. I'm done chumming.
It's such a. How can you have a Metroid game without fucking Samus?
I think if you're E ranking. Okay, you win. All right.
That's a solid E.
Metroid,
Next.
Metroid Samus Return for the Nintendo 3DS, released on September 15th, 2017. We discussed it a little bit. Out of the three versions of Samus Returns, you think it's the least? I would say
No, I think...
It's a version.
Of the three versions of Metroid 2, I think the Game Boy version's the least.
Okay.
But that's because you're stuck to that square, tiny-ass window. Samus takes up most of the screen anyways. AM2R is my ideal Metroid 2. And then this one, it's a fun remake.
I think they all have merit. Yeah. I think, what are you looking for? Are you looking for the original? Are you looking for a version of it that's like Super Metroid, which is AMR2? Are you looking for a remake? Something completely different. With new graphics, 3D graphics, and new play mechanics. There are interesting play mechanics in that game, especially the fact that you can swipe at enemies now. It's timing, and it changes the gameplay a lot.
Those mechanics just weren't for me.
Yeah.
Because, in my opinion, although it looks cool and it's probably cool in game, I feel like that kind of takes away a lot of the challenge of Metroid, being able to just bat everything away with your arm. I really kind of like that sort of Mega Man style. If there's a projectile coming your way and you can't jump up or duck down out of the way, you're going to get hit.
Right.
I shouldn't be able to block it.
Right. So you think the Hail Mary pass is just not for you?
No, the Hail Mary pass, it looks cool. It's a cool mechanic. I think it'd be fun for a game, but I want a little bit more of a challenge in there, and I think AM2R really delivers on all fronts with that.
Okay, so Samus Returns, what do you think? What's your ranking?
It's a good game. I'll give it a B.
I'll give it a B also. I think it's pretty decent. And other than that, that's the whole series up until Metroid Prime 4. Real quick, Ethan, what do you expect from this game? What do you want from this game? What do you need from your Metroid Prime? Well, you talked about it already. It was under development. They were not meeting what they wanted for the game. Nintendo went in and said, sorry guys, we're going to delay this. We're going to go back to the original Texas boys here. We're giving it to Retro. They killed it with Donkey Kong over the last couple of years. Let's see what they can do with Metroid. What do you want from Prime 4?
Man, I was blown away that Nintendo even thought about giving Metroid Prime to another company. Because Retro knocked it out of the park 3 times.
I think a lot of fans felt that way. They're like, why the fuck are you guys doing
Why would
this?
you even consider that?
Yeah.
Like, these guys clearly know what works. They know how deep they have to dive into all the lore. They clearly give a fuck about the game, the characters, and the feel. And they've got to be fans of the series, because they nailed it. They nailed it 3 fucking times.
Right.
If they didn't know what they were doing, then the sequels would have sucked.
Do you think Nintendo had to tuck tail and walk back to them and be like, we're sorry, guys.
I think they
Here's your
did.
game.
I think they did.
Yeah.
But as far as a wish list goes for Metroid Prime 4, I'd like to see the beam selection come back. I'd really like for them to get a little more creative with it, other than just your typical wave, ice, and plasma beam.
Something other than the elements.
Yeah, I think I believe in Retro. I think they can come up with something pretty cool.
What we didn't even really get a chance to talk about is how good the puzzles are in those games, because they are. It's challenging. They hide this stuff.
They're solid.
And the X-ray vision is fucking insane. The fact that you basically have 3 different layers of each game to look through the game. Like the heat vision, you've got the X-ray vision, and the second game you've got the dark vision. You've got all these different things that are going on.
And then in the second game, what I thought was really
Echo.
cool
Is it Echo? Yeah,
the
Echo.
Echo
That's
visor,
what it is.
where you can see sound waves.
Yeah, it's fucking
Dude,
crazy.
that's awesome.
Dude, those games scare me. Do you want it to continue what Metroid Prime 3 did and be more industrial with a bigger storyline, or do you want it to go back to where Prime 1 did, where the storyline is how you choose it to be?
I think something that would be interesting would be, I could see this 2 ways. So if they go the route of Prime 3, I want them to expand on the worlds that you visit. I want them to vary, not feel like it's just one theme per world. I want it to feel like a world.
Right.
If that makes sense. So there's multiple different areas and aspects to each world, and there's reasons to go from world to world to world, much like Prime 3 had. But on the other hand, it would be really hard for them to span a story again across 5 different locations. I think they're going to go with the Metroid 1 and 2 approach, where it's one sole world. This world has its own gimmick, like Talon 4, like Ether, and they're going to give it its own unique alien feel. And for some reason, I think Faison's probably going to come back, and with that, probably Dark Samus as well. That's become a super iconic character for the series. Really, I want them to kind of think a little more outside the box. All 3 of the Prime games, they've one-upped the last one with upgrades, power-ups, and abilities. I think they can go further. They can do some cool stuff that no one's even thought of yet. The 2D Metroid games, they've really kind of stagnated with upgrades and power-ups and things like that. Prime games have always been trending upwards. I say keep doing that. Keep coming up with new shit, because y'all are doing great.
I want them to go back to Zevis. I want to see that world in 3D. I think that would be badass. I think that'd be really cool.
A third trip to Zebes?
I would be fine with that.
Or really 4th?
I'd be so fun. Wait, 4th?
The original Metroid, Super Metroid, and then Zero Mission.
You're right. But Zero Mission is technically a reimagining of the first game. It's the real
It's the 3rd time they've been to that world.
I want them to go back. The main reason why is I want to see the jelly cubes in 3D. I think that'd be really cool. I also think it'd be interesting to see a Breath of the Wild version of Metroid. I don't know how you would do that, but that big of a world, open world, would be something really amazing to witness.
Maybe like give the ship a bit more of a point and you could fly around, or maybe some type of buggy or something.
I mean, Metroid is a lot about caverns and corridors.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard to do an overworld of that. You kind of do have to constrict and restrict for the atmosphere, for the claustrophobic feeling. That's something that's so big to these games.
Dude, that's how you do it, is you fucking have the overworld that accesses all the different areas. You use the ship to fly around to it, and you can go into the ruins, the caverns, the mines, the whatever.
Right.
Literally, you just use the ship to fly around,
right.
and you get to choose.
And you could go to different places. Man, yeah. I can't wait to see what they do. But I would love to see them go back to that and face the Mother Brain in 3D on that planet and have her at the core again.
Do you think they might twist Zebes with Faison? And that's cool. How the Mother Brain comes back?
But I don't think Zebes is even... I think it's literally gone at this point. I think in the third game, when you explode it, you explode.
I don't know. It exploded in the first game, but...
That's true, and it just took out a portion. I don't know.
Or maybe cool. Dark Zebes?
Dude, I'd be totally down with that. Yeah, an inverse parallel universe version.
Well, with the Faison hit Ether... It split into light and dark ether.
Or dude, so many ways you go with it.
Yeah, anyhow, there's a billion ways.
All right, we're not going to talk about it anymore. Listen, this became a two-parter. So anyhow, we appreciate you checking out the second part of our Metroid conversation. We had a blast talking about this. Ethan, thank you so much.
Yeah, dude, that was awesome.
Yes, so
love the series, so I'm glad we finally got to sit down and talk about it.
And we will go back and talk about the two games specifically. We'll bring some friends over. We'll go in a deep dive into those games. But Metroid... You fucking win. You won my heart. Samus, you are that bitch. Be that bitch forever. You are the best. Thank you for listening to We Are Bagu on the Quackatech 5000 Network. Go to our social media. Check us out. Send us an email at gmail.com or quackatech5000@gmail.com. Other than that, this has been Duck. I've been here with
Ethan.
And you ain't Billy Mitchell, bitch.
You ain't Billy Mitchell, bitch.
Stop trying. And there it is. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. If you have enjoyed it, please do not forget, share with your friends. That is how we grow the network. And if this is your first time listening, head over to your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, and give We Are Podcast a like. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, you're going to love the other podcast here on the We Are Podcast Network. We have We Are Era, where we talk about movies, entertainment, whatever the fuck we want to talk about. That's me, that's Jake, that's Hobby. We're breaking down pop culture, and we're having a blast. Don't forget Heroes Gyros, a Dungeons and Distraction side quest. Me and the boys were sitting down, we're playing some D&D, we're having so much fun. You can go and start that from the beginning of the journey, Season 1, Episode 1. You're going to love it all the way through. And finally, I Hate Being Sober. Personal stories from epic people. I'm going to sit down with some of the most epic people I've ever met in this world, and we're going to talk about their life, we're going to talk about their trials and tribulations, and we're just going to talk about their journey this far. Head on over to our social media. All links can be found in the description. You can find us at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at /We Are Podcast. Also, head over to the Facebook group, We Are Era. We would love to see you in that group. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed the podcast today, share it with your friends. That's the only way we can grow this network. But with that said, I have to remind you, I can never let you forget this. You ain't Billy Mitchell, bitch. So stop trying. We'll see you next time.